it can be helpful to just look at everything from a cost-benefit analysis. When that sense of the self that feels like it's in control is there, right? When it feels like it's there and or you believe in it, like you're totally identified with it, or you may just feel like it's there and you're not identified with it. It's kind of a matter of degrees. But when it's there, what does that do for you? Like really, what does that do for you? And I can't tell you the answer, but I know you can look into it and figure it out for yourself, right? What does it provide? Because it provides something. And how real is what it provides? How reliable is what it provides? How tangible is it? So seeing like, well, what is this providing me when I feel like a doer, when I feel like I have agency and I'm in control, and then on the other side of it, what does it cost me? What is the cost of having that experience of being a self, a part that can act on other selves and act on the world and get more of what it needs and, avoid what it doesn't want and figures everything out, or has to figure everything out, and has to actually maintain itself as this sense of being separate and apart. Like, what is the cost of all that? So this is valuable just to really see, like, is it doing what it says it's doing? Or is it doing what it seems like it's doing? And this is a very accessible and approachable way of going about this, because you can just look at it in real time or look at it in how it affects your life. It's the kind of thing we don't look at very often. Like, we don't look in this area. We don't look in this direction too frequently. So it can feel strange or uncomfortable, but it can also give you important information. It can reveal things you may not always see about yourself. Or it's not really about you. It's just about the entanglement with the mental process. It's about the buy-in that you have when you feel like a you. So yeah, this like cost-benefit analysis can be helpful. And you can break it down into aspects, right? The sense of a separate self has different aspects that have different effects. So for instance, it feels separate. It feels separate from, well, everything. From others, even our close loved ones, we still sort of feel separate, right? Separate from objects in a physical world. Separate, and far more separate from some people and objects than others, based on distance and so forth. So that there's a whole scale to that. So what does that how does that benefit us, that feeling of being separate? Well, you could say it gives you something to do, right? If you feel separate from somebody, but they're important to you, then you have a project, right? You can always manage the distance with that person, or manage the bond, or try to hold on to that person, or worry about what happens if they leave, or worse, you can try to manipulate them to not leave, or all the things that we get busy doing, right? Managing. When we feel separate, I don't know how it could not happen where there's some management's going to come into play, right? But that could be, it could feel like a benefit. It feels like it gives you something to do, right? And what's the detriment? What's the downside to that? Well, as long as you're doing that, it makes you feel like something has to be done. Something has to be fixed. Why do you need to do something? Well, because it's not okay. It's not okay the way it is. I need to mess with it. Like, those kind of go hand in hand, right? The benefit and cost of that. Also, you feel isolated. How can you be a distinct, separate entity from everything in the universe and not feel isolated? So I think what happens is we use number one to avoid number two. We use the number one I'm talking about of constant management to avoid the feeling that, shit, as long as I feel separate from anyone, including the person who's closest to me, I'm always going to feel a little bit isolated. I'm going to be prone to loneliness. It's going to happen because the illusion of separation, or the appearance of separation, is kind of goes hand in hand with that, right? So the sense of being apart, you can look at the cost-benefit analysis. The sense of being a doer, like being someone who takes action and acts upon the external world, acts upon another, acts upon, what is the benefit? Well, again, it makes you feel powerful, or, well, like you have agency. It makes you feel like you can fix something that could be broken, that you can reach out into the world and make it a little bit more like you want it to be. Isn't that what we're doing? Trying to control, right? So it gives you a sense of control. What's the downside, or what's the cost of that? Well, the cost is there's going to be times when we feel out of control. And there's going to be some times or some events where life will show us that we really have no control at all. Like we lose a loved one, or a health crisis, or something like that. So that can be really psychologically challenging to the degree that we really believe we were in control. So those are the kind of cost and benefit of that sense of being a doer. But there's more to it. It comes with a strong sense of responsibility, and we might like that. We might identify with that. And then the cost of that is we have to uphold that self-image. And sometimes that's really hard to do. And it's not always in alignment with our deeper instincts. So these are the cost and benefit, or the cost and benefit breakdown. And there's probably a lot more if you do this on your own, of feeling like a doer, feeling like you are, you're the one that acts upon the world. Yeah, I think those two areas are probably the most juicy, have the most information, because that is the sense of being separate and the sense of acting upon a world external to you. Now, there are other costs that are bigger than what I'm talking about, but I can't explain that. You can only realize it. So all of the costs I just mentioned are psychological. They're all belief-based, essentially. The belief, even if it feels like a non-conceptual belief that I'm separate from that object and that person and the sky and the ground, that's a belief, essentially. Or the belief that I'm a doer, I'm an agent, I affect change in the world, I do things to make the world feel better to me and less scary or whatever. Those are essentially psychological effects. But there's a much deeper effect that's a detriment to both of these. And that is, the best way I can say it is just not experiencing reality as it actually is. That's very uncomfortable. And that is, in my experience, that's really what dukkha is, what suffering is, what unsatisfactoriness. It is living in a way that is just not deeply congruent with reality, with truth. And the way I know that is through non-dual realization. Non-dual realization, realizing it, not an experience of it, but ongoing. It's a deeply satisfying experience in a way that thought isn't, in a way that timelines are not, in a way that doership is not. And all those are illusions. So when those illusions are dispelled, time, space, separation, dualistic action, when those are dispelled, there's a deep peace that's available. But it's not conditional peace like the mind thinks about it. The mind cannot understand this kind of peace. Just like it says in the Bible, the peace that passeth all understanding, this is, in my experience, what it is. So that's the biggest cost, is you just don't have access to deep, lasting, natural peace. So yeah, the benefits and costs can be seen at the psychological level, but at the instinctual, energetic, and somatic level, really there's only cost, and there's no benefit to that sense of separate self, in my experience. And of course, that sets up a challenge, right? And many people here have taken up the challenge and realized this. And many people here have done that to some degree, and many people here are kind of starting out with it. But it sets up a challenge. And the challenge is, I can't prove it to you. There's no way. It's impossible. Through thought through concepts, through language. I can't prove it to you. Not that I need to, but I just can't. However, my assumption's always the same if I'm talking to you in this way, in this context, in a retreat and on a YouTube video, through my book, in person about this topic, so to speak. It's not really a topic, but my assumption is always that's what you're interested in. And that tells me something about you, that you don't just turn and run away from this. And that is, your instinct knows this. There's something in you, of course, that knows this. Of course, you know at some level you're not separate. Of course, you know at some level that the interconnection is just naturalness and totality. It's part of everything. It's part of this, and every single thing is everything. All of this is instinctually obvious, I think, certainly to anybody who's interested in this stuff. So yeah, there is an attunement in you, but the mind, there's a gap between that and the mental process. The mental process just can't understand this. It just never will, really. And that's okay. It doesn't have to at all. But there's a bit of an addiction to thought, right? An addiction to understanding, an addiction to analysis, judgment, pushing, pulling, doership. Again, just it's a big circle. You go all the way back now to the cost and benefit. It might feel good sometimes to feel like that. It may feel good to feel in control sometimes. And then it also feels really bad to feel out of control. You just have to see that they're the same thing. Two sides of the same coin, and neither one is deeply satisfying in the way that naturalness is deeply satisfying, in the way that the unborn is deeply satisfying. So it's a positive message. It's a simple message. And it's an actionable message. But the action is attunement to your own instinct, to what is beyond thoughts, concepts, beliefs. So then I do what I can to point people to their instinct. To your deepest truth, to your original face, to your own unborn nature, unborn and undying nature. And the your part, your nature, is that's just the arrow that's pointing. It's not personal. You're not in possession of it. Because if you were in possession of it, you could lose it. This isn't something you can lose. Yeah. You can sort of rediscover it, but the rediscovery is a kind of net loss rather than a net gain. You lose the preoccupation with dissociating. You lose the preoccupation with mind wandering, with feeling separate, with arguing for your own right to suffer. Like, that's what settles down. And then this is revealed. This naturalness is revealed in all five senses, instantaneously now.